Hello, everybody.
Hey guys.
Welcome back to Res Life. This video we've been wanting to get to for a bit, and we even put out a post asking if there were any questions anybody wanted to know. We got a few of them, which were the normal questions that you would normally get: clans, where we're from, stuff
Where
like
we
that,
met.
where we met. So we're gonna do this video, and then it is definitely gonna lead on to other parts because there are a lot of different sections to these stories that we can elaborate more on in other videos. We'll have story time on a lot of these a little later as the channel progresses. But for right now, we will introduce ourselves. My name is Brandon Yazi. Kia ani nishle, zeklatni bashichin, do maideshkijni dashiche, do trabajen dashinale. I am from Rock Springs, New Mexico originally. This here is my mama bear. That's what we call her because she is really awesome, very cute. But if anybody harms the boys, things take a different turn. She's a fierce protector of our children, and I love that. But this is my wonderful wife. She will introduce herself.
Hey guys. My name is Pamela. Pamela Rose Smith. I don't know where I would say I'm from. I grew up in Mexican Springs, and my dad lives here in Seattle. I also grew up in Brianna Lake. I lived in Albuquerque for a bit, so I don't know where I would say I grew up or where I'm from. But my clans are Twittajitni and Sinajini. That's all I know. I'm still trying to get the rest from my parents, but they say I don't remember. So.
When she was little, she was in Mexican Springs and in Marion Lake. And then through school, she was going to school 1 year here in Gallup, and then a lot of the other secondary schools were in Albuquerque. And then she.
Peru. Then I went to Denver. I graduated in Denver at Cherry Creek High School.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I am from here in Gallup area. I've lived here most of my life. I went to school locally in Rock Springs area or Yatahe, north of Gallup. So I went to Cheetah Elementary, and then I went to Gallup Mid School, Gallup Junior High, and then Gallup High School. So it was pretty simple for me.
I wish it was that easy for me to explain.
Mama Red's been all over. She learned a lot from a lot of places, so that's awesome. Pam and I, we are legally married, even though her name legally is still Pamela Rose Smith. My name legally is Brandon Yazi. For reasons that we will get to in another part of this Get to Know Us, I'm still in the process of changing my last name. So until I do that, then she will be Smith, and then when I change my last name, she'll take that last name, and so will our boys. So that's a little bit of a process that we're going to definitely get to this year. So it should be fixed by the time Jackson's birthday rolls around. One of the main questions that people are going to ask, and a lot of the Get to Know Us videos get to this right away, is how we met. And it's quite a crazy story. And this goes back to a different time. So a lot of what you're going to hear is how it was before. So do you want to start?
I don't know where I would start. How far do I gotta start?
Well, Pam's never had a boyfriend.
No, and I couldn't have a boyfriend. No boyfriends through high school. I couldn't go anywhere. No movies. No going to friends' houses. I think I went to my friend's house once actually, and I danced one time through my whole years of going to school. And I never did anything. I just always went to school, went to drama class.
From what I hear from her and her family, her dad was pretty strict, and she's her dad's baby, yeah. So that's how that goes. It was just by chance that when I met her, it was a different situation, but it all worked out the way it was supposed to. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So when I met her, she was working at Denny's on the east side. That's how I met her.
Yeah.
But during that time, I was going through a time in my life where I was like out of it. Like everything, socially, mentally, psychologically, like where I was at in life. So I was working at a tattoo shop. I was tattooing on the north side of Gallup. It was by a California Chinese fast food. It used to be called Shadowlight. For reasons that we'll get to in another video, I was I was not really going anywhere for like home. So I was working at the shop and I was like sleeping in the truck or sleeping at the shop, and then I would go shower and get ready at my boss's house or the shop owner. And it wasn't just me. There was a lot of people that just kind of hung out there for their own reasons. And I used to indulge quite a bit when I was in the Navy. So I did as well when I got out, and I drank heavily when I got out of the Navy. So when I was working at the tattoo shop, I would get done tattooing, and we would just get done tattooing, and we'd start drinking like at 9 o'clock. So I used to do that quite a bit every night, and my younger brother Ants used to work at Denny's on the east side, and for the same reasons that we're going to get to later, and I wasn't going back to home to my parents' house. I didn't really see my brother a whole lot during that time. So I would go down to Denny's in the middle of the night. I would be pretty well into the night after the tattooing, and I would have one of the people there at the shop at the time that was sober drive me to Denny's to go see my brother. And I didn't drive my truck when I was inebriated because that's all I had was my truck, and it was one of those things where I just worked a lot of years on it, and I built it, and it was like a really cool race truck. I thought it was cool. Everybody else thought it was a nuisance and a menace, and it was too loud and too low, and it was had no purpose other than make noise and go fast. So I would go down to Denny's, and then I would see my brother. And for a long time, like I would go to Denny's, I'd be like, "Hey, I'm going to Denny's," and all the guys would be like, "Bring me back some brownies," or like, "Bring back some hot wings." And I would go down to Denny's, and
brownies. They would really ask for brownies.
I would talk to my brother, and I would, whoever drove me down there, I would be like, "Hey, order whatever. I'm gonna go talk to my brother," and I would go hang out at the end of the counter, and I would talk to my brother. And he used to work graveyard, so I would be down there like midnight, 1 in the morning, and I used to like not really care about a whole lot of stuff back then because I used to like drink a lot. So when I would get down to Denny's, all I would care about was eating, and I would talk to my brother. And then after a while, like when I'd be down there for a bit, I'd sober up and I would start, talking. Eventually, I got to know a lot of the people that worked at Denny's. Not everyone, but a lot of them. And I started asking my brother, like, "Hey, who's that chick over there?" And my brother was like, "Nah, man, you're gonna screw up her life." And of course, we were using other language, but he's like, "No, you're gonna screw this chick's life up, man. You can't talk to her." And I was like, "No, man, just like hook me up, And he was like, "No, man, that's stupid. Like this chick don't have a boyfriend. She don't stay out late. Like she takes care of her family. Like all she does is work." And I'm thinking like, perfect. Like hook me up. And he's like, "No, man." So I would go down to Denny's a lot, and I would always try to go see her and talk to her, and I'd always tell my brother, "Hey, where's that chick at?" And I used to like Pam a lot when I went down there because I was so used to just hanging out at the shop with normal girls in Gallup and normal my friends and stuff. But I would go down to Denny's, and I would always see Pam. Her work shirts were always done up right; they weren't just slopped together, and her hair was always put up real nice. She always had earrings on, and I was thinking like, man, my life's kind of out of line right now, and somebody that's, you know, well kept like that might change my life for the better. But I didn't know where to start. I had no idea where to start because I apparently everything that I thought I knew in the world, I didn't know anything. So I seriously had nowhere to start. And I would keep talking to my brother, and finally one day he was like, "Man, like, just she don't drink, she doesn't cuss, she doesn't smoke, she doesn't do anything. Like maybe you need to come down sober, and then she might talk to you." And I'm thinking like, oh man, and this was the first time since I got out of the military that somebody had told me like maybe you should be sober, and it wasn't like they were getting mad at me or berating me or being like, "Oh, all you do is drink," or whatever. So he was like, "Maybe you should come down sober and you can talk to her." So I was like, "Oh man, maybe I can." So instead of going down at midnight, I started taking off down there like at 9 o'clock at night. As soon as I was done tattooing, I would tell the guys, "Yeah, I'll pick that up. Hold on," and I would take off and I would start driving down there by myself. So I didn't like have somebody else driving me down there. You know what I mean? And then once I started driving down there by myself and sober, I started trying to talk to her, and I would be like, "Hey, what's up?" And at the time, I thought she was just looking at me like, "Oh man, this dude, like, I got this drunk dude, and he's full of tattoos, and he talks like a sailor, and he walks in like he owns the joint. Like, I don't got time for that. So I was trying to like be cool and tone it down and try to talk and be cool. And every time I'd show up and say hi, she would like I would never see her for the rest of the night. And I'm thinking like, oh man, this chick really don't like me. And
Meanwhile, I'm
it
just
turned
in
out
the
it wasn't
back,
that way.
hiding in
So
the dry storage, like, oh no, somebody's trying to talk to me.
I didn't know.
My friends and my coworkers would always be like, Pam, you should just talk to him. And I was like, how?
And there was no way I believed that she didn't have a boyfriend because she was super cute and she was very respectable. She was a really nice girl. And there was no way I thought that she didn't have a boyfriend.
For some reason, I thought my dad would be like, roll up with my mom and be like, what are you doing? So I was always like keeping a lookout. Maybe my parents would show up, but they were in Albuquerque at the time, so they never really did. Only once.
Luckily, I had the jumper cables in my race truck. When I met Pam, her dad was in the hospital and he was staying out in Albuquerque, and her mom was pretty much living there at the hospital as well, taking care of him. She came down here and
I
got
had
a
a job in Albuquerque too before I came down to Gallup. I used to work at the theater in Albuquerque at Centurio 24. I used to make popcorn and serve popcorn and do all that stuff. And then I came down maybe like 3 months, maybe, of living in Albuquerque. I came down maybe like 3 months, and I started working here in Gallup at. I think I worked at King Dragon first, and then I went to Denny's on the east side. So I was probably in Gallup for like 2 years, maybe 2, 3 years, and then Brandon showed up.
Then this bull came crashing into the china shop. So her dad was in the hospital and unable to keep these boys away from his daughter. So I swooped on in, and man, I sure thought I had the coolest truck, and I was like, let's go for the cruise. And she was like, I don't cruise, And I'm like, well, let's go for a cruise, Like, and she's like, well, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. And back then all I did was like drink and tattoo and smoke cigarettes. So I was like, I don't do anything. Let's go drive on the freeway, and we'd get on the freeway. And when I finally got her to go for a cruise with me, we just went from the east side and we drove to the west side and we drove back to the east side, and then she went home. And we did that for a few times.
Cruising, listening to oldies. I remember he would always listen to the oldies. Nobody would listen to oldies. Maybe my parents, but I don't remember anybody listening to oldies. And I was like, man, wait, how old is this guy? Just kidding.
And back then, I drank a lot, so I looked a lot older. So I'm super lucky that I ended up with the situation that I, finessed my way into. But we started cruising, and then I think what really started it off was my brother one time overheard her talking to one of their other mutual friends about a tattoo, and he was like, "Hey, bro, like she wants a tattoo." So that's kind of how I was like, "Hey, like, my brother said you wanted a tattoo," and it started with there, and she eventually came by the shop, and she got a tattoo, and we ended up staying there, just hanging out all night, and it was right when I first found YouTube, and I was telling her, like, you ever watch YouTube? And she was like, what, no? And I'm like, yeah, there's funny videos, check this out, and I was just showing her all these videos that I thought were super hilarious, and I'm like fresh out of the military, so my sense of humor is like different, and she's looking at me like, I don't know if it was like what is wrong with this guy, or if it was like, oh man, this guy needs help really bad. So
oh my God, what's wrong with you? You need help really bad.
So somehow through all of this, it wasn't even like a situation where I just like went in and started taking her everywhere. I think I went in and I was trying to be the cool guy, and I was trying to talk to her and trying to like act like I had my life together and all that, and I think she clearly could see right through that, and she knew what kind of state I was in as far as like distress in like for my life.
Yeah.
So that after we've gone through a lot of things, like talking about it and doing all the things that we needed to do to figure that out. It seems like that was a lot of what happened. So I'm very, very lucky that she found me or I found her. I followed the food and it led me to her. So that's how we met. And then we started hanging out. And we just started hanging out together, like going cruising and doing this and that. Like we were just driving around or whatever. And it wasn't anything specific. We didn't like go to the movies and stuff because back then, like I had no idea.
You never took me on dates.
I had no idea that like that much of my my mind had been altered from just going to basic training. So like a lot of that changed when I was like growing up from adolescence into adulthood. You go to basic training and they strip you of all your like identity and your character and like who you are, and they rebuild you to be like this efficient like fighting machine that works for the government, and you're supposed to be efficient and you're supposed to work through any emotional distress or any psychological distress. So then they make you pretty much numb to anything. So I like really didn't even have this idea of like I'm supposed to love her or take her out on dates and show her like cool things in the world. I just kind of started hanging out with her, and I felt this comfort that I would say I hadn't felt in a long time, but I don't think I felt it ever in my life, the comfort that I was feeling with her. So I would just got attached to that comfort, and I got so addicted to it that I changed my whole life to like just try to go down there and see what she was doing and go pick her up and try to do whatever I can with her. And I would call her on the phone in the middle of the night, and it was nonstop. And it was before
he would
that.
Seriously be calling me. I would try to text him, but he would be like, "I don't like texting. I'm just gonna call you," and then he would seriously call me.
And back then, I usually didn't care. Like if people were calling or saying what's up or hey, let's hang out, I was like, nah, I don't need that right now. But for some reason with her, it was different. I was like, oh no, like I gotta go see what she's doing. I gotta see where she's at. Like I gotta be around her. And that's how I just got so attached to her. And we started hanging out. And it was in February. We started hanging out like in January-ish.
I guess so. Yeah, January.
So like February, like late February. On the 20th is the day that we figured that out. So we were just hanging out and we were eating because she knows that's what I like to do, and she would bring me food at the shop, and we just kind of talked about it. And I was asking her like, you know, are we doing this? Like, you want to be my girlfriend? And what did you say?
You didn't say, "Are we doing this?" You said, "What do I have to do to be your boyfriend?" And I was like, I thought we were already at that point.
So I just wanted to clarify. But when I said like, "Are we doing this?" I meant like in a general like, is this gonna happen? Like, is this really where we're at? So like.
But I remember him asking this.
And then I let her know after that when she said like, I kind of thought you already were my boyfriend, and I was telling her like, no, specifically like I want to just make sure because I want you to know that like if we're together, this isn't like a 1 week or 1 month thing. Like I told her like if we're gonna get together, like we're doing this for the long haul. Like we're gonna be together for a long time.
And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I want.
And the whole time I was like, oh, you got no idea what you got yourself into.
I think at this point I had just turned 21, so I was 21 when I met him.
I was fresh off a couple of combat tours, and I was still in that mode of like I'm the biggest baddest dude around, and I acted like it anywhere I was at, and I was not a good person at all. And somehow I met her, and I sobered up for like a long time, and we started hanging out. And this was back in 2008 when we first met and started hanging out, and we decided that we were going to be together. And I think further along, after spring training, it was April, and I was watching baseball opening day. The Rockies were playing the D-backs in Denver, and I was watching the game. And that's when she had came into the room, and she was like looking at me kind of like, what is wrong with this guy? And up until that point, she didn't realize how much I was like into Rockies baseball. I was watching the game, and she was kind of like, what is up with this guy? So I was telling her like, oh, it's opening day. Like this is like should be a holiday. Like it's our national pastime, and it's opening day. And she was like, okay. And up until then, I had heard a couple of times that she was living in Denver, and she was from there, kind of. And it didn't really like go through to my head until she was like, "You never been to a game there?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "How would you like to go to a game there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, all right." So she went to work the next day, and then I picked her up from work, and then the next day after that, she was like, "Hey, when you pick me up from work, we're gonna take off." And I said, "Okay, cool." And I picked her up from work, and we caught a ride. Her mom came down from Albuquerque, picked both of us up, drove us back to Albuquerque, and then she hopped off, and then we took the truck up to Denver. We drove all through the night and the morning because she got off like at 1 in the morning or something.
Yeah.
So we were driving
Like
like
3 o'clock actually.
all night. We were driving, and it was 1:05 game time, and we showed up in Denver. We parked the truck. We didn't stop anywhere. We just went straight to find parking. We went down to the field, and then we bought tickets. And that was the first time I had ever been to a Colorado Rockies game. And I'd been to like baseball games before, but not like that. Not in a big league stadium like that, and not like my favorite team or my favorite sports franchise in the whole world. So when I got there, it was kind of crazy. Like it blew my mind so bad. And she was like, "Get tickets wherever you want." And
I was like, oh, this stadium. I thought they were still working on it. Because it looks like every time I drove past it, it seemed like it was still being built for some reason.
and that's on purpose. Coors Field is
Yeah.
built to look like a classic retro style ballpark, so
But it was
it
pretty
definitely still
awesome.
looks like it's under construction.
I never went to a game, so we watched fireworks at Invesco Field.
Dang. Well, I'm a Bronco fan too, I guess. Like I'm a Bronco fan too.
We walked by it quite a few times. We went to Elitch's right there in that area. We watched a soccer game at the time Invesco Field. We watched fireworks there. Like I did a lot of stuff there. I really miss the city.
I had a lot of fun when we went up there. Like all the times we go up there, I have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first time was so cool. Like we went up there, and it kind of tripped me out because like we went up there, and she knew where everything was, and she knew where like how to get around, and she knew what we were doing, and like some people wanted some tattoos, so she knew where to go for that. Like she's
Tattoo
like, I know where the
supplies.
supply stores are. Like I remember seeing them on this road and this road.
Yeah.
So we went and got tattoo supplies. And we ended up doing a lot of tattoos, and we came back down, and now we have a lot of fun when we go to Denver. But when we got there, she was like, "Get seats wherever you want," and I'm thinking like,
It's
"Do
like,
I
wherever
want
you
do I
want.
want dugout seats?" And I said, "No, I want to sit like by the purple seats." So on the third level at Coors Field, there's a usually all the seats are green. There's one row of purple seats across there, and that's at the 5280 mark. So that's 5,280 feet above sea level, or 1 mile. So that's why I wanted those tickets right there, and we ended up getting that, and it was
high.
perfect.
It was crazy.
It was like right behind home plate, and when we were taking the pictures, you could see the whole field, you could see the city, you
That's
could see like the
nice.
mountains, you could see the sunset. It was perfect. Like I seriously thought that I would never like see that in my life. So everything just kept building. Like when I was with her, like everything that I never had experienced. Like I had been around the world by this time, and I had seen a lot of things in my short life because I was only like
25.
I was only 25 then. Um, but I'd been a lot of places, and I'd been through a lot of things, and I'd seen a lot of things. But everything that I was experiencing with her was so different. It was on such a different scale, and it was so grandiose. Like everything, it wasn't just like, "Yeah, I'm going to show you a little love." It was like, "You want love? Boom! Like there's love. Like you want compassion? There's compassion." Like it hit so hard that I didn't even know how to take it, and I really immersed myself into that. So we had a lot of fun. We still have a lot of fun, but we had a lot of fun from that time, from then till now. And through the first year, I stopped tattooing because it had negative impacts on our relationship, and probably me as a person altogether, just because I was there doing bad stuff, just drinking and being out late and causing problems and fighting and whatnot. So I started working at Verizon. I started working for Alert Cellular, and I sold a lot of phones. I had a lot of fun doing that. I was really good at that. And after a while, I started tattooing again. I went back to tattooing with my friends, and we worked at a shop for a bit. We just had Michael, and we had a lot of situations at my mom's house to where my parents and my family wasn't too welcoming to Pam. So if she was at the house, she would just be in a room and she would never interact with anybody, and she would call it her dungeon.
Oh, that's me and Michael's dungeon.
So when I started tattooing at Enchanted Ink on the north side, which is now, I think it's Best Tinting in Auto Glass now. It's between Aztec.
Shamrock Loan.
No, when we drove by the other day, it's the tinting shop.
They moved.
So it's the tinting shop between Aztec Laundry and Churches on the north side of Gallup. And
big old white building.
And I was tattooed there with a lot of really good friends of mine, Derek and Lamar. We were working for Mike Silva and Anna Olvera, and we had a pretty good time working there because when I started tattooing there, I was tattooing there for a few years, and we would constantly see piercings come in, and they would leave because there were no female piercers there or in the town. And a lot of the guys don't really care when they're getting pierced, but girls seem to want a female piercer.
There was another piercer there.
Kim,
but she
left us.
She left. Yeah, she didn't have time for the shop, so that's when the owner was like, Pam.
And I think that's when we noticed how many people would prefer a female piercer after she had left, and it wasn't a bad thing. Like she left due to her personal reasons, and she moved
she
out of town.
I think.
So when she moved, a lot of the piercings came in, and we had to turn them away because they wanted a female piercer. So Pam learned how to pierce, and then she started piercing there. And Pam pierced there for a few years, like not like 3 a few, like 7 a few, I think.
Yeah, I think
through
so.
all our boys. So we were living in. We moved out of my mom's house.
That was my crazier.
She says crazy, but I thought it was pretty cute too. She had this super bright pink hair, like right here, that was.
Tattoo.
She used to do a lot of 50s style too, with the hairdo and her dresses. It was awesome, and she had piercings, and she started getting tattooed a lot, which is my fault, I tell you, because we would be bored in the shop, and I would be like, "Hey, somebody's get a tattoo." Because
sacrifice.
So nobody would come in for tattoos some days, and as soon as you get somebody in the chair and you get all the needles open and you start working, then like a line builds up, and you're like, "Oh, I gotta finish this later." And it would really happen like that all the time. So that's how she ended up with a lot of her tattoos.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's gonna ask, how many tattoos does Mama Bear have?
Oh my gosh.
She has a lot.
I can't even count, guys. I have a lot.
That's what we always
like my whole back is covered. My whole back body is covered. Up and down.
Yeah, her back's covered. Shoulders, lower back, the back of her legs, her ankles. Like she's got tattoos. And
I'm just happy I didn't get any on my arms.
Mama Bear had some piercings too, but all those had to come out because Draven didn't agree with them when she was pregnant with Draven.
Yeah.
So everything got inflamed. The piercings all had to come out, and they were cool too. Like I really liked the piercings that Mama Bear had because she had the piercings that people don't normally get, like the tragus piercing and the industrial, the Monroe. It was cool.
My nose pierced. I had my tongue pierced. Oh.
It was awesome. So through those years, we pretty much built a family there with the shop owners and the guys that we tattooed with. And we had moved from Rock Springs. We moved to Comerco. We lived there for a bit until we moved up to Country Club Drive, which is commonly referred to in Gallup as Snob Hill. Sorry for all of you that live up there, but it's where all the rich folk live. And we lived up there. We had a really nice view of Gallup at night. We were living in the house that's like right by the parking lot of the public school stadium, right up on the hill, and that was really cool. And then her dad was sick when I met her, so he had been getting ready to move back here to his land. And by the time he had moved back here, that's when he asked for help. And I know he didn't want to because her dad's not like that. But Pam was coming over a lot to bring him food and stuff and to check on him. Yeah. And eventually it got to the point where she just started like feeling bad for her dad. So after talking to him a few times, he asked if we could come out and help. So we were going to come out and like help and then go back into town, but we ended up just moving all our stuff out here, and we had set up the trailer that was here before this one, and we set it up to live in, and we just started living in it, and we kept like thinking we were going to build or get a new place, and we kept just fixing that old trailer and fixing it. And that's when we started coming up with the idea for our channel Res Life, because we were trying to just show that like we can, not we, me and her, but we as people, not even just Native people, but people in general, like if you have to make things work, like you can always adapt and overcome obstacles that are in your way, especially if your family's lives or your family's comfort depends on it. So we did a lot of things, res life, meaning like our plumbing was bad. We cut the copper pipes out. We got a hose. We started hose clamping it wherever it froze and broke open. We had a wood stove that when it broke, like instead of getting a new wood stove, like we would have to just fix it, and we did a lot of work on that, and we like just that's how it was. Our door was like leaking cold air. It would snow would pile up in one section of it. We would just figure it out, and we kept our family safe and warm and fed, and we did it like the hard way, like hauling water for the crops and like chopping wood every day, like all year, some years, and it was just a lot. Fixing everything, leaky roof, holes in the floor, like everything, and we eventually left the tattoo shop, and it was when we had Jackson, and a lot of that, like that's gonna be definitely another crazy story. But when we had Jackson, like by the time we had Jackson, I was like tattooing again and indulging again, overindulging again, and getting all my friends involved and my brothers, and we'd go out and get in these crazy fights and cause a lot of problems, and it was not good at all. But after that got fixed, like we, she had Jackson, and at the hospital with all the complications that arose from that, and like I'm sure you guys noticed by now how I treat Mama Bear and how I treat Jackson, and that's for a good reason. And Michael and Draven know that we're not like pushing them aside or anything. Like if anything, I'm giving them more responsibility to help me as the dad. And me, Michael, and Draven's job all day is to make sure that Mama Bear and Baby Jackie are okay. And back in 2012, um, it was almost 2013, the last day of the year. Jackson was born, and after a really, really long 8 minutes, I almost lost Mama Bear and Jackie, and they came back to me. So that's a long story for another day, but they're here with me and they're here with us, and I do everything I can to make sure that they are safe and taken care of, and not more than an arm's length away from me. And Jackson is with her mom. There are probably like 3 people in this world that we would trust with our boys, and her mom is one of them. Her dad's the other one. So that changed a whole lot, and I kind of just sobered up again, and we have been together now for 15 years, and in 2017 we got married in Vegas.